Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Hey, Matt, welcome to the show. As way getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. That's a long and twisted story. We'll say serial entrepreneur, built and sold some companies. Some went really well, some went really terrible, traveled the world. And my background is really growth hacking, network effects. So I found out fast I wasn't going to be that mechanical engineer I thought I was, got into building my own businesses, got into crowdfunding, built a top crowdfunding podcast, only to find out helping people raise money sucks. They have nothing to pay you with. Started making my own products in Asia, importing them to the US and Europe, scaled up an e-commerce business with Amazon, sold that at the end of the year for a pretty nice exit, got into working with startups, helping them scale, doing a bit of investing, and then also run a podcast, Disruptors FM, which is a bit like a long form TED.
Cool. And what do you like about it?
What do I like about the podcast?
What do you like about what you're doing today as far as like helping other people? Why'd you choose that versus starting another company? Or
I'm very ADD, first of all, so you'll be able to tell that just from how I talk.
I get a sense of that from the
yeah,
email
but I like to work on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things, what I like doing now is I found that I'm really good with helping companies scale faster, but I don't want to be the person who has to do it myself.
Yeah.
I like brainstorming ideas. Here's some awesome strategies. Here's what we could do. What about this? What about this? What about this? Now have fun. Yeah. And that's kind of been it. And then with disruptors, especially, it's very much a futurism and problem solving type of where's the world headed when it comes to AI, space, biotech. So being able to weave that in with really interesting people, talking to interesting people, and then helping them see where the future and how they can get there. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. So let's dig into that. Like, what do you see people doing wrong today? Are they just lost? Or they have no clue what to do?
Oh God, you're going to have to give me some context on that. You mean people in general, entrepreneurs? What do you mean?
Entrepreneurs, right? Because like when somebody contacts you, what state are they typically in?
It's usually one of two things. A, they're not thinking big enough. B, they're thinking about a product and not a problem. So a lot of people, they want to go and they're going to work and they're like, okay, maybe in 5 years we can build this up to $100,000 business. And I was like, okay, now let's 10x that. Yeah. And now let's 10x that again. Because the way you think about things, it doesn't take 10x the work to have 10x the results. It just takes a bit of a different mindset. It takes a bit of a twist. So even for this podcast or even for your business, what would it take for you to 10x it? What would it take for you to 100x it? You'd have to do everything different, but you wouldn't have to work harder. So a lot of what I do is helping entrepreneurs with that. And then the other side of things is when they're building, a lot of people come to me either seeking investment or seeking help raising money. They have the world's greatest yada yada, and it's kind of like a who gives a shit product. Yeah. It's not solving a specific problem. So if you've got something, don't build the product, find the problem, so to speak, pick at that, and then lean startup your way to something that really is needed.
Okay. And let's say they do solve a critical problem that people are aware of.
I've got a time machine in my basement. If you don't tell people about it, it's really hard to sell. Yeah. So a lot of people suck at marketing. So that would be the other thing, is people that have a great product and they're just not really sure how to get it out there. Most people are doing one of two things when it comes to, they've got a product. They're either focusing just solely on content, or they're blowing a shit ton of money on Facebook and Google ads, just throwing it away like everyone else. And that's not their specialty or forte. So it's not like they're actually winning with those Google ads. Maybe they're breaking even, maybe they're making a little bit of money, but they don't have bread and butter, so to speak. That's not what they're focused on. So I try to get people laser focused on what's the 20% that gets to 80% of the results? What do we need to be experimenting on because we don't know what is going to work and what isn't? And what can we automate and leverage and do differently than other people? Because if everyone's going left and you turn right, suddenly you're noticeable. Suddenly you're winning.
That's it. I see everybody pretty much doing the same thing, right? They start a blog and then they start a podcast. They start a YouTube channel. Nobody shows up. Then they have a webinar. Nobody shows up. And then they replace the marketing person. How do you take them through that journey of figuring out what will work?
The first question is, what do you want? And I was working on a blog post. I've been working on a lot of blog posts, but what's your USP? What's your unique selling proposition? So for some people, that's going to be content. For some people, that's going to be products. For some people, that's going to be design. Yeah. And a lot of times, once you have that USP, you try to scale. But as you scale your business, as you scale the USP, maybe your USP is customer service, and you get bigger, and suddenly your customer service blows. Well, your business is out the window, and you're not Zappos anymore. So you really got to know why people are coming to you, and then double down on nailing that. So what you got a good example? It's easier with an example.
Well, maybe if you can bring up one that you've seen that people would know.
Okay.
Like DoorDash. I don't know if you know DoorDash.
I know DoorDash, and so they've got their own problems. A lot.
And I know you have strong feelings about Uber.
Delivery businesses, you're a commodity. I don't care who gets it to me. I just want it to get there. I want it to be cheap and I want it to be fast. And none of those are very good for a business, right? Because it's super, and that's almost one of the big problems I see with a lot of startups now is there's not a differentiation. I would say e-commerce is my bread and butter. And a lot of e-commerce companies try to be the next Casper. Casper made a ton of money by simplifying the mattress buying process. Yeah. But that's not the reason they made a ton of money. They made a ton of money because you got rid of the warehouses, you got rid of the showroom guy who was kind of giving you the funny look, like, try this one. By the way, they're all 300% marked up. And just the entire business was so inefficient, you could cut out all the garbage. Well, now you see the direct-to-consumer desk, the direct-to-consumer whatever, for things that people don't really need or where the purchase frequency doesn't work. Those business models aren't working unless there's really, really bad inefficiencies in the market. Same thing with the subscription boxes. Hey, guess what? You can send people shaving kits every month and it works really well for Dollar Shave Club. But there's other products where that doesn't work well. Right. Yet you see people trying to do this with everything and they don't have a differentiation. It's just a subscription box company. You're either winning at marketing, i.e. what Casper and other companies did. They were destructively good with Facebook and Google ads, or you're getting killed. And if you're playing in the game that other people are playing in, which most people are that are trying to play those games now, it costs way too much money to make money.
Yeah. Or maybe even take like the podcast space, which is like everyone's got a podcast now.
Yeah, everyone's got a podcast. Are you better off starting a podcast or trying to be a guest on other podcasts?
Exactly. That's what I tell everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's like the hard part is not building a podcast. The hard part is building an audience.
Yeah, it's building the audience, retaining them, keeping them interested, and being original. So I think being original is super valuable. Yeah. In terms of how you build that audience, how you sell to that audience.
Right. Yeah, because the content is the easy part. It's getting people to consume the content.
Yeah, getting people to consume the content or even to know about the content is the tough part. That a big part of what I like to work with companies is what are the small little changes you can make to have the big differences. So for instance, with people consuming content. Well, if you're able to increase the referral rate, so to speak, between one guy listening to the podcast and then him referring it to a friend, 5%, 10%, that's exponential growth. Yeah. You are growing so much faster with those small little hacks. Maybe it's a click to tweet thing. Maybe it's sharing buttons on your site. Maybe it's just asking, hey, by the way, we put a ton of effort into this podcast. Would you be willing to give us an epic high five and share it with a friend? Yeah. All of those things can be super, super valuable, but a lot of them aren't necessarily things people think about. They think about people optimize the hard stuff without thinking about the easy stuff that has the exponential results.
That's it. And I kind of had that epiphany this year with comedy. Instead of just making content, I made comical views of the content. And all of a sudden they'll share something that's funny much more than they will something that's just insightful.
Yeah, people like to be entertained. Are you not entertained, right?
And that's it. And it's like, how do you make, and my challenge was, how do you make like business stuff entertaining? So you got to make the opposite of it look foolish or stupid.
Yeah, you got to make it entertaining or fun in some way. Really, the key factor I find is you want to make the person look cool for sharing it.
Yeah.
If it's like, oh my God, help us save the puppies. Well, yes, I want to share that because I want people to know that I'm into puppies. Or guess who just lost 5 pounds at Shake Shack or whatever at the gym. Well, yeah, I want to share that too because you know what, that makes me look good, and maybe I'll get a date, or maybe people will give me a high five, or oh, I just posted on Instagram and I have 1,000 likes. My
Yeah.
goodness, like those type of things, people want to feel cool, especially around their friends. So give them excuses to do that.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about either copying what does work in other companies or hacking around it. What do you see out there today that's really innovative and creative as far as, building an audience or building a market?
I would say one thing that sucks. Well, let's go the opposite
Yeah.
ways. How restrictive the platforms have become. So one of the things we talked about before, and one of the things that was really prevalent with kind of Internet 2.0 companies was stabbing your opponent in the back, so to speak, kind of riding on their coattails. Airbnb hopped on Craigslist and posted jillions of Airbnb listings on Craigslist to try to increase exposure and essentially steal customers. Basically, when it comes to platforms, you're trying to screw them before they screw you. I sold on Amazon. Amazon got third-party sellers on there, and third-party sellers were like, yes, we got all these customers. And Amazon was like, yes, we got all these data. And then guess who won? The people who owned the playground, Amazon. They started making their own products,
Yeah.
essentially just working direct with the exact same suppliers, lower prices, and intentionally inflating their rankings. And guess who lost? Either the ones who got kicked off or the ones who got search engined away in the Amazon algorithms, i.e. the sellers. So I think you need to be really careful when you're playing those games. That's not to say you shouldn't play those games, though. So you are playing with fire, so to speak. You just have to keep in mind, if you are going to play the platform game, which I do think that people should do, your job is as quickly as possible to screw the platform and to get people from Facebook, from Google, etc., onto your website, onto your email list, onto your app,
Yeah.
because you really are. I mean, even if that's okay, let's create 100 fake accounts with 100 fake accounts, and we're going to go through, and we know they're going to keep banning us, but you know what? We just don't care.
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of things where people are like, "Isn't that a little black hat?" And it's like, "Yes," or "gray hat," or "Yes." And guess exactly how those companies got to be those companies, and that's exactly what they were doing. And in startups, if it's not hurting someone, which it's really not hurting someone, you're playing the, hey, Facebook, here's $5, we're going to buy a customer.
Right.
The problem with that is then you get into like the Blue Apron situation. Oh shoot, everyone who wanted to buy a meal kit's already a customer since we've gone public. Now it's getting more expensive to get customers. Shoot, we're screwed, kind of deal.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you look at like Kylie Jenner,
Mm-hmm.
right, and what she's been able to do, it's like a 22-year-old becoming a billionaire off of Instagram.
I think it's off the last name, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, regardless,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you could take the whole pod of them as an individual, where they were promoting each other and everything. They could not. Well, they did it off of right, with the reality series. Then they got onto social, and they played the platform, but it's completely dependent on that now. Like when they kind of poo-pooed Snapchat stock went down 10% when Kylie was criticizing it. So now it's like this, what do they do without Instagram?
What they do is they build off of it. Your goal is to continuously be shifting from here to here.
Yeah.
And the percentage, it's kind of like paid traffic versus content SEO. So ideally you want everyone to be coming to you from word of mouth or content. So
Right.
you're shifting your focus from spending on ads initially because you got to get the traction, either because you need to just freaking stay in business, or you're trying to raise VC money and you want to make up this fake J curve. And you're doing that and you're transitioning over to a content and a long-term strategy, something that's sustainable, that you're not paying hand and fist to keep running.
Right. But even content, you have to play the platform game, like you do with Medium, I do with LinkedIn.
You do, but a lot of that you can automate. And I would say that's more of a distribution thing and less of a less of a playing the platform game. More what I think about when I think of playing the platform game isn't distributing your content somewhere. It's creating, hosting, and focusing on your content somewhere. So for instance, if you want to build up a website or you want to build up a following and you only build a YouTube channel,
Right.
You're building a YouTube channel. You're not building a website or a following, because they can remove you at any time.
Yeah.
But if you're building a YouTube channel and you're hosting those videos on your website and trying to drive people back to that website where you've got the lead magnet, where it's, guess what? You get my 15 greatest growth hacking tips to acquire and retain customers, which you guys can grab that, mattward.io/free. Well,
Yeah.
You're trying to send people back there. That was a shameless plug, and that's exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah. Because you still value that email address above everything else, or
because that's the one way that you can sneak into somebody's house without someone else giving you the okay, either the website or the email address,
or an app, or
an app.
Yeah.
Even that's a little bit weaker, but yeah.
Right, because an app at best you have a notification.
An app at best you have a notification, or it's until the phone breaks, or it's until they change the rules on the notifications. And even that, I mean, God, if you're not turning off all the notifications on your phone, you're a sucker.
Because I kind of had this view. It's like websites are so passé, because that traffic, and trying to get that traffic is very expensive. Because how do you get it? Yeah, SEO, or you drive somebody from a platform where you have an ad, versus a platform like in B2B, LinkedIn, where I get more views per hour on LinkedIn than I do all day on YouTube. And, and probably more in an hour than in a month on my website.
I would agree with all of that, but I think it's two things. Part of that is because of the platform and platform effects. And part of that is because you noticed that was happening and that's what you built towards.
Yeah.
Now, if instead you had tried to focus people from LinkedIn to your website, I think you'd be doing a lot differently now. And I think longer term, it would be something that would be safer. So
it's definitely safer.
I've seen enough $10 million Amazon sellers get suspended overnight for absolutely no reason to really trust a platform all that much. Imagine $10 million. You've got a business rolling. You have that much inventory. Now it depends. Like if you have something that's not a physical products business, it's a little bit less. But even then, when your business is relying on someone else, you're not sleeping as good as you could be. Yeah. And it's not as saleable as it could be.
Right.
It's not as valuable as it could be.
And how about with content? What I've found is it has to be in the most popular format for your audience. And I think people too often miss that mark. Some people blog, maybe for you blog, for me, podcasts and videos.
I think it depends. So I don't think you have to create the perfect content for your audience. I think you have to create the perfect content. I think we're each skilled at different things. I think you're better off creating the content that's right for you, which will attract the right audience. Now that said, like we said before, I have some VAs, I have a team, I have some automation that's repurposing, posting to LinkedIn, posting to Medium. Now I've recently hired someone to start creating videos from my best blog posts. So I do think that creating different types or different variations of content, a lot of times you'll see like people write an article and then someone will make that into like a beautiful Instagram picture, and then it'll be like a tweetable quote. I think doing that and anything that you can do to really leverage those different channels, but a big part of that is what's your bread and butter, doing that, and then the other stuff is kind of icing on the cake.
Yeah. And I think when you got to learn about your audience and what they care about on what channels and in what format, because I see too many people just copying their competition.
Yeah, and that rarely works.
Yeah. I mean, because it's so noisy out there today, it's got to really stand out.
Yeah, it's gotta stand out, be valuable, and be something that, again, people are so excited they want to share it with a friend, i.e. brag, because they're the ones who found it first.
Yeah. And that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Either get them to share it or engage in it or create some kind of conflict around it.
Mm-hmm. Or just buy something. That's always good too.
That's always the long game. Have you had any experience in the B2B space?
B2B, yes, in terms of working with a lot of B2B startups. So my background is helping companies scale faster with unconventional methods. I think B2B is a little different than B2C in that companies are a lot more profit focused. They're a lot more, this has to make money or not make money. But at the same time, they're also more logical and efficient. So if I can save you X amount of time, well, heck yes, I'm going to do that. Well, a consumer might not do that. I think in terms of ways that you think about marketing a B2B product, it's going to be, obviously you're going to be using different types of channels. You might not be focused so much on Facebook, Instagram, etc. You're focused more on LinkedIn, maybe on Medium. But the ultimate goal with all of that stuff is to get people onto the email list or onto the site, because that's where the transactions are going to be happening, or onto the phone if it's a big sale.
And when you say unconventional, can you give us some examples?
What did I say? A little ADD, remember?
Or one example?
No, I'm just trying to remember what I said. Unconventional ways to grow.
Yeah. When you talk about, just 10x, people just, that sounds nice. It feels good. And it does make
sounds nice.
Which makes you focus on, Pareto's principle and Price's law of trying to really focus on where you can get the most for the least amount of effort and money.
And some of it is also trying stupidly audacious things. So I remember my first podcast that I was running. I was thinking, who would be the ridiculous guest that I have no business getting that could amplify this podcast wicked? I don't really have better words to describe that. And it was, and that was just a funny way of saying it. But I reached out to, 100 ridiculous people. I got Seth Godin on the program. Yeah. I had no business having Seth Godin. I got Neil Patel. I had no business having Neil Patel. I think sometimes going for those moonshot marketing efforts can be super, super effective. Now, when it comes to unconventional ways to grow, I would say most people focus on growing the top of the funnel. And growing the top of the funnel is great. But I would like to see how you can make the inside of the funnel fatter, and better yet, make the inside of the funnel into other funnels. So that's both upsells with new products and then the all-important grab a friend. So if you can have, I have a blog post. If you guys go to mattward.io, you search for referrals. It's a bit of an unconventional way, but this is something that I've seen people do really, really well. And that's something you can steal for your own businesses. And everyone does a buy one, get one. Everyone does it. Hey, guess what? We'll give you $50 if you get someone else on, and they'll get $50. And we've seen that a million times. Yeah. And they're really not that effective because we know we're being manipulated. But a much better way to do it is, let's say you're a lawyer. Let's say you're running a SaaS company. Let's say you're doing whatever you're doing. Once you've been working with a client for a while, saying, hey, I hope you've enjoyed working together. We try to spend 100% of our time for you and our clients, which means we don't really do much marketing. Would you be willing to, or do you know someone who could benefit from our services so that we can continue focusing 100% on you and your account? Yeah. That's a pretty good way to get referrals. And you come up with some unconventional things like that. You come up with some different motivations for why people onboard other people. You come up or make it easier for people to do that. All of those things, suddenly you have a 10% improvement in how many people are getting onboarded from existing people. And you find, oh, wow, that's a 200% improvement on our overall sales. That's a 300%. And those numbers just keep compounding as you go further and further along. So for instance, with advertising, I ran an Amazon business. I would go break even. I would go harder than break even on selling products with advertising, because if I have you as a customer, it's much easier for me to upsell you on other products later on.
Yeah, I think that is smart. And I've tried a lot of things like that, where you're asking people to tag somebody who would like this post in the comments.
So yeah, that's a smart one as well.
Yeah. So then you put a comment tagging them. So they see it twice.
As long as it's not like those, as long as it's not like
Sleazy.
those pricks that are doing like 15. I get the most random people tagging me on LinkedIn. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Right. Yeah. You don't want 15. You want one. So that
Yeah.
then it kind of starts compounding. Because that network effect is pretty powerful. Because most marketing, the best marketing is always word of mouth.
Yeah. The best marketing is word of mouth. And then there's the, whoever that kind of strange actor is, the 5 rules of Kevin Bacon. Somewhere within the 5
degrees,
6 degrees of separation, you can get everybody.
Right. Any other ones as far as building a network effect?
As far as building a network effect, I think the most important thing is looking at your business model in new and different ways. So a lot of times people are building a product, they're building a business, and they have one of two things. They're very set on what they're building, or they have a business that has like 5 different business models they want to pursue. So don't do that. It never works. Yeah. Well, when you have more than 1 or 2, you find yourself very quickly diverting your attention and diverting your effectiveness. But when you do have that one business, what can you build into the product that inherently increases the virality? So one company, I'm not going to remember the name of the company that did this, but they had a really smart system of every time you logged back into their app, or it was some type of website for improved hosting, etc. Every time you logged in, they would show you the updates since last time. So like, guess what we accomplished just for you. So each of those things would keep you sticking around longer. I like the companies that give you the snapshot of, you just saved 10 minutes today, or you just added $500,000 because you're using those little clickable, tweetable things. Super simple to build into the product. I think thinking about how you can build those viral effects into the product. It's hard because now we've been going through a lot of different ones right now. I like samples as well. So another blog post was about Starbucks. I was working at Starbucks. That's usually where I work. Well, if you've ever sat in a Starbucks for a few hours, you see them walking around constantly handing out free samples. It's not just because they're nice. And trust me, they run the AC way too high. They don't want to keep you there. What they're trying to do is get you hooked on something else with sugary sweetness. Yeah. Now, businesses can do a really good job of this, of rather than saying, hey, do you want a free trial? Say, hey, thanks for being a customer for a year. We wanted to let you use this as a bonus for 6 months. Yeah. And suddenly you're upselling them. It doesn't feel like you're upselling them. And even if you're upselling them, you can also let them give that to a friend as well. Gifting with a friend is a great way to get other people into your system. Samples, new products, all of those things are great ways to upsell. And if you already have an existing customer, it's much easier to make them into a bigger customer than it is to find a new customer.
Cool. And when you look at new clients, which ones or what things really excite you when you know it's a great match for you?
I would say one thing that I'm looking for, and I look for founders and CEOs that are willing to take a beating. They want to be elite, but they're also building world positive companies. So if you come to me and you're building the next photo sharing app, it's exciting. And maybe if I have nothing going on, I'll work together. Yeah. But I want to be working with the companies that are creating the clean meat that's going to cut out animal agriculture, the companies that are designing the solar farms that are going to be changing the world, the companies that are saving you time and money. They're cutting out the banking fees. They're getting rid of these evil education debts. The companies that are doing something that really fucking matters. Because I think when you're building a business, that's what gets you going. That's what gets me going. And I think capitalism for good is the direction that we need to be headed, and that the world is headed. So I work with companies. I help companies create better, more scalable business models. But for me to get really excited, you got to be willing to work really hard. You got to not be an asshole, and you got to be doing something that really matters.
Right. Cool. And where can people get in touch with you?
So like I said before, you guys can get my 15-page growth hacking guide to acquiring and retaining customers, reducing churn, making more money, and all the good stuff at mattward.io/free. If you're trying to raise money, you want a perfect pitch deck. my background also is angel investing, working with founders and running a podcast on that. mattward.io/elevator. You can get the guide to the elevator pitch, the perfect pitch deck, and raise money. And then if you go to just the website, mattward.io, I got tons of articles on there from everything from big tech to better ways to scale your business, scale yourself, scale your team, and build something incredible in the process.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or you know what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.